about whether they should stall the Mount Barker movement. Mike Smithson.
It's quite clear something wasn't right with the rezoning of Mount Barker land. It will be a very interesting one to watch, just to see if justice does take its course.
The 5AA Breakfast Show. Weekday mornings from 6 on 1395. Adelaide's 5AA. Interactive radio. Call 8223 0000. Peter Godfrey.
17 minutes past 5. Let's head to, well, the land of the big dry. They've been in drought over in New Zealand. Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz. G'day, Selwyn. You've had a bit of rain there.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, over the weekend, some rain came down from the eastern Pacific side and gave New Zealand, particularly the North Island, a very good drenching. But the farmers are saying it's not enough, Peter, not quite enough to get rid of the impact of the drought. And also there's a big dry spell that's moving onto the northern part of the island as we speak. And the concerns that it might bed in for a time too.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed the bit that you got on the weekend. Yeah. Let's get on to a couple of nice, juicy political issues to get into. To start with, the PM is is he embroiled within a bit of a concern over your spy agency that involves the Kim Dotcom saga, which you've spoken about a while ago, about cover-ups or otherwise.
More documents came out via the Official Information Act here, where the Labor Party had kind of been probing away to get information, and the latest documents kind of show a flippant type of attitude between the GCSB, which is the Government Communications Security Bureau, kind of supposed to monitor communications offshore in New Zealand as opposed to spying on people inside New Zealand, or permanent residents or citizens inside New Zealand, to be more precise. A flippancy kind of showing in the documents between it and the New Zealand police in their operations when they were covert in that planning stage in particular, to do a sting against Kim Dotcom, the big boss of Megaupload, that the FBI kind of came into New Zealand in its helicopters and everything and basically shut down his whole operation. Now, one of the interesting things that's sticking in the media's attention this week, Peter, is this phrase that they used for Kim Dotcom, and it was almost like a code word of identifying him, and it was Billy Big Steps was the name, and that kind of gives a pretty good window in on how a lot of the documentation kind of presents the mood and attitude in there. Now, the authorities have come unstuck in this way, just as a quick backgrounder, because Kim Dotcom had permanent residency in New Zealand at the time when the GCSB had him under surveillance, and it is illegal in New Zealand for them to have under surveillance a permanent resident or a citizen. And I guess what everybody is trying to do, the politicians and the judiciary, is to figure out exactly at what point did the GCSB realise that it was operating outside the law. And these latest documents kind of indicate that there was a mood in the official documentation even where it's saying, well, even if somebody calls this out, I think we can kind of talk our way out of it. And remember, they kept the Prime Minister in the dark, supposedly according to the Prime Minister, for almost 7 months on these points of being operating illegally, even though the GCSB realised internally that it was operating illegally in February last year. It wasn't until September before the Prime Minister was supposedly told about this. So all of this is kind of leading up to, Peter, where the Prime Minister put in one of his close officials from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet into the GCSB to have a look under the hood to see what was going on. Their reports are expected to be released in full, censored but reasonably full, this week. And the Prime Minister says, I haven't seen it yet, but I expect the reports will suggest that big shake-ups inside the agency will eventuate. Now, what that means, I guess, is the challenge for everybody to try and figure.
So it all boils down to looking into whether it was an intentional cover-up or whether somebody just messed up, stuffed up and did the wrong thing. Is that the two lines that have been looked at?
One of the big things on the cover-up was in the High Court case relating to the Kim Dotcom proceedings and trying to defend himself from being extradited to the United States, came about where the top cop in this investigation He alluded to, I cannot answer that question, Your Honour, because it is involving a secret government organisation. And he wouldn't go any further than that. And then he was asked specifically in a chain of questions whether or not, whether or not the GCSB was involved in the operation at any time. And the indication really was a no. He got off the hook in a sense in a legal term, but the implication was a no. Then there was a series of events where the GCSB went to the government, the Prime Minister's office, with the Deputy Prime Minister they dealt with, and sought a ministerial certificate that prevented anybody from revealing in the High Court its involvement. And that's where the questions relating to whether or not there was a cover-up come into frame.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a murky, shadowy, smoke and mirrors game. That's so typical of these agencies that has been presented before the New Zealand public to churn over in the last few months.
The time that elapsed before John Key was sort of brought into the loop, is that a time span that's accurate? He's there's been questions of about whether his memory lapses on a whole range of other issues. So is there anything in that, or is that time frame correct?
Out of his responses to questions, at what point did you know this and did you know that? And this is mainly in Parliament as well during question time. He's saying, no, I have no recollection of that. And then there will be revelations, well, you were given a brief at this particular point, at this juncture point in February, et cetera, et cetera. What's your recollection of the detail there? I have no recollection of that. I don't believe I was briefed on those points. So the terms that was created here, brain fade, and attached to the Prime Minister, that it seemed from a reasonably minded person's point of view that there was a large degree of convenience to not recalling being briefed on particular things. And so the Prime Minister's credibility and honesty in this area was under question, particularly around September through to November last year. He seems to have weathered that storm, and his popularity amongst the public seems to have endured. So if that's a gauge on whether or not the public believes that he's been kosher and upfront, well, maybe they believe that that's the case.
Okay. On to other issues. Some comparisons perhaps being drawn with the rescue plan that was proposed for Cyprus, that being a tax on people's savings. Comparisons with a plan for a scheme to ensure New Zealanders wouldn't be affected by a collapsing bank. Tell us what's proposed. Yeah,
and then there are parallels to the Cyprus type of thing. I think because Cyprus has come into the global news frame on this levy that the EU is placing on people to save the banks. So it comes on the front. The Green Party has kind of put the connection there, which has been disputed by the Reserve Bank. But what it's all about really is the government's looking to change the law here in New Zealand so that banks that are facing potential collapse or edging towards failing that vital solvency test can lawfully take money that people have saved in their deposit accounts to fund the bank's return to solvency. So putting that simply, if the bank's on hard times and it looks, look, mate, we're going to go broke, this law will change it so it can, don't worry, mate, we've got all this money from our depositors, we can just take that, it's legal because the government's made the law. And it's that kind of thing that the Green Party in particular, but backed by the Labour Party and New Zealand First in the opposition ranks, is saying, well, that's theft by another name. And the government, in question time in Parliament yesterday, Stephen Joyce, one of its Mr. Fix-It type ministers, was saying, that's absurd, that's just insulting. What's doing there is to protect the depositors' money that's held in the account, and using that money there, that's up and right and proper, etc., etc. So there is a lively debate on this, on the ethics of it. That if the money is deposited into the bank in good faith, that the bank will hold it secure, then if they go and take it because they're on hard times, well, that's theft. And the other thing is the argument saying, well, with the bank getting that get-out-of-jail-free card, if it's facing insolvency and being able to dip into good personal savings of people, that creates an incentive where it has a back step as opposed to seeking other means of remaining solvent. So all this debate is raging at the moment, and the Reserve Bank is kind of being pulled into the politics of it, really. And it's kind of saying it's got nothing to do with Cyprus, so it's going on that red herring as opposed to going on whether or not it's in the spirit of a bank's relationship with its depositors, and whether or not that the spirit of that relationship is kind of being eroded here.
Okay.
So it's one, I think, where you fall back on your own instincts on whether or not it's right and wrong.
Yeah. So there's no government guarantee on bank deposits in New Zealand?
No, well, in some areas you've got investments, term deposits and things like that have traditionally come through with a government guarantee written on them. Now the Prime Minister is being a bit precious here by saying, well, banks have never had a government guarantee applied to them right across the board, which may be correct. But what the Greens, Labour and New Zealand First are getting at, they're saying that really what the public deserves and requires here is a government guarantee to make sure the deposits are actually remain safe and secure. And of course the government's saying, well, John Key, the Prime Minister, says the government doesn't provide guarantees for banks, never has, and he said basically they never will. And the Green Party and the Co are saying, well, they should get insurance on such things like every other bank in the OECD.
Okay, which, well, not having that guarantee, because we got a guarantee here on deposits. I think that was brought in during the GFC to stop a run on panic runs on banks. But well, it doesn't give confidence, I guess, if something did go wrong, does it? Yeah.
And there's some funny, weird stuff around the fringes that are poking through from the government at the moment. It's almost like it's kind of hasn't got a clear indication or a feeling for the mood of what's right and wrong. It's backed off 2 other taxation policies this week alone.
Okay.
Yep.
It's always interesting, isn't it, the political world? There we go. All right, Selwyn, many thanks for those stories from your part of the world. I hope you get some rain between now and when we speak next, but a bit like us, it's probably not necessarily that likely.
Yes.
Never mind. All right, Selwyn, have a great week, and we'll catch up with you next week for some more.
Okay, Peter.
Thanks, Selwyn. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Selwyn Manning in New Zealand. Head to livenews.co.nz for more. It's 29 and a half minutes past 5. Anne Stone has news, sport and weather, and then love to talk to you. 8223 0000.
Hi, Mike Keelan here. The Adelaide Symphony Orchestra brings the magic of the circus to the Festival Theatre in April. Cirque de la Symphony is a show the whole family will enjoy. There are performances by jugglers, aerial flyers, strongmen and more, all choreographed to popular classical music. For a chance to win a VIP experience hosted by me, treated to drinks before the show, and a meet and greet with the conductor, Guy Noble, head to 5AA.com.au and register your details. Thanks to the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra and 1395 Adelaide's 5AA.
Top deals and top service on your new Honda. Top of Glen Osmond Road, Nordic Honda.
5:30 on 5AA. A few showers today with a top of 23. I'm Anne Stone with Adelaide's comprehensive news. Property owners in South Australia have secured tax discounts on council rates, water bills and other charges by challenging state government valuations. In the past 2 years, more than 10,500 people have challenged the official value of their properties, and just over half have had the figure reduced. One property owner in Clare reportedly had a valuation reduced from $1.17 million to just over $1 million. Valuations are used to calculate council rates, water bills and other state taxes. It's been a forgettable week on South Australian roads with another fatal accident yesterday. A man died after crashing his car into 2 parked vehicles on the Phillip Highway at Elizabeth around 4:30pm. He was taken to the Lyle McEwen Hospital but died on arrival. Channel 7 cameraman and 5AA presenter Sean Perry says it was a messy scene.
Actually, it looks like the car has veered up onto the footpath in behind one of the cars and hit it and then come back out and rammed into another car and